On a humid August afternoon in a small Ohio town, Angela Carter, a 42-year-old black woman, walked into a local grocery store to pick up a few items for dinner. She was dressed casually, jeans, a white blouse, and sneakers. Nothing to suggest she was anything other than an ordinary shopper. But within minutes, her routine errand turned into a confrontation that would expose deep-seated biases and spark a reckoning. Two officers, assuming she was a shoplifter based on little more than her appearance, handcuffed her in front of a growing crowd. Seconds later, their mistake became painfully clear. Angela wasn't just any shopper. She was a police captain with 20 years of service. Angela had been in law enforcement since her early 20s, rising through the ranks in a nearby city's police department. She'd earned her captain's badge through years of dedication, navigating a career where she was often the only black woman in the room. That day, she was off duty, visiting her mother in the small town of Millfield, a place she hadn't lived in since high school. The grocery store, a family-owned market called Miller's, was one she'd frequented as a kid. She grabbed a basket, picked up some chicken, vegetables, and a bottle of wine, and headed to the checkout. Her mind was on her mother's health. She'd been unwell lately, and the dinner they planned. At the register, Angela paid with her card, chatting briefly with the cashier, a young woman who recognized her from previous visits. The transaction went smoothly, and Angela tucked the receipt into her purse, a habit she developed over the years. She walked toward the exit, reusable bag in hand, when two uniformed officers, Officer Daniel Hayes and Officer Michael Brewer, approached her. Both were white, in their late 20s, and relatively new to the Millfield Police Department. They'd been called to the store after a manager, suspicious of Angela for reasons he later struggled to articulate, reported a possible shoplifter. "Ma'am, we need to see your bag," Hayes said, his tone sharp. Angela stopped, surprised but composed. She'd dealt with enough tense situations to keep her cool. "Sure," she said, holding out the bag. "I just paid. Receipts in my purse." Brewer stepped closer, his hand resting on his holster. "We'll need to check it ourselves," he said. Angela raised an eyebrow but complied, handing over the bag. She pulled out a receipt and offered it, but Hayes waved it away. "We'll get to that. Step over here." Angela's jaw tightened. She knew this wasn't standard procedure. Officers didn't typically ignore a receipt, but she stayed calm. "I'm not sure what's going on," she said evenly. "I paid for everything. You can check the receipt or ask the cashier." The officers exchanged a glance, and Hayes motioned for her to move toward the wall. A small crowd of shoppers had started to gather, some whispering, others recording on their phones. Angela felt the weight of their stares, but kept her focus on the officers. "Can you tell me why you're detaining me?" she asked, her voice steady but firm. "We got a call about a shoplifter," Brewer said. "Description matches you. Turn around, hands behind your back." Angela's heart sank, not out of fear, but out of a familiar frustration. She'd seen this before, both as a civilian and as an officer. "I'm not a shoplifter," she said. "I'm a police captain. My ID's in my purse, along with my badge." Hayes scoffed. "Yeah, sure. Hand behind your back, now." Before Angela could respond, he grabbed her arm, twisting it to cuff her. The cold metal clicked around her wrists, and the crowd's murmurs grew louder. Angela didn't resist. She knew better, but her mind raced. She'd spent her career upholding the law, training officers to de-escalate, to listen, to verify. Now, she was on the receiving end of a mistake driven by assumptions. As Hayes led her toward their patrol car, Brewer rifled through her purse. He pulled out her wallet, and with it, her police ID and badge. The moment he saw the captain's insignia, his face paled. Dan," he said, holding up the badge. "You need to see this." Hayes turned, his confidence faltering. He took the badge, examined it, then looked at Angela, who stood calmly despite the cuffs. "You're a captain?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. "Captain Angela Carter, Columbus PD," she said. 20 years on the force. Now can you take these cuffs off?" The officers hesitated, clearly rattled. Brewer fumbled with the keys, uncuffing her while Hayes muttered an apology. "We didn't know, ma'am. We were just following protocol." Angela rubbed her wrists, her expression unreadable. "Protocol doesn't mean assuming guilt without evidence," she said. "You didn't check my receipt. You didn't ask the cashier. You saw me and decided I was a criminal." The crowd was still watching, phone still recording. One woman, an older shopper who'd known Angela's mother for years, called out, "That's Angela Carter. She's a police captain, not a thief." The words hung in the air, amplifying the officer's discomfort. Angela didn't raise her voice or lash out. Instead, she asked for the store manager. When he appeared, a middle-aged man named Tom who looked uneasy under her gaze. She asked why he called the police. Tom stammered, saying he'd seen her lingering near the wine aisle and thought it was suspicious. Angela nodded, letting his words sink in. "Lingering," she repeated. "That's what you saw." She could have pressed further, demanded an apology, or threatened legal action, but Angela had other priorities. She picked up her bag, thanked the cashier who'd vouched for her, and left the store. The officer stood frozen, aware that the videos being recorded would likely spread online. They were right. Within hours, clips of the incident were circulating on social media, sparking outrage and debate. Angela drove to her mother's house, her mind replaying the encounter. She wasn't surprised by what had happened. Profiling wasn't new to her, but it stung to face in a place where she'd once felt at home. Over dinner, she told her mother, Lorraine, about the incident. Lorraine, a retired schoolteacher with no-nonsense demeanor, was furious. "You're a captain, Angela. You've trained officers better than that. They need to answer for this." Angela agreed, but she wasn't interested in personal vengeance. She'd spent her career pushing for reform, advocating for better training and accountability in policing. This wasn't just about her. It was about the countless others who didn't have a badge to flash, who faced the same treatment without the power to challenge it. The next day, Angela contacted the Millfield Police Department's chief, a man she met at a regional law enforcement conference years ago. Chief Robert Larson was mortified when he heard what happened. He invited Angela to his office, where he apologized profusely and promised an investigation. Angela was polite but direct. "I don't need apologies," she said. "I need change. Your officers need better training on bias and de-escalation. This could have ended much worse for someone else." Larson agreed, admitting that the department, like many small-town forces, had limited resources for training. Angela offered to help. She developed training programs in Columbus on implicit bias and community policing, and she proposed adapting them for Millfield. Larson, eager to make amends, accepted. Over the next few weeks, the incident gained traction. Local news outlets picked up the story, and the viral videos prompted calls for accountability. The store manager, Tom, issued a public apology, admitting he'd acted on unfounded assumptions. Officers Hayes and Brewer were placed on administrative leave pending an internal review. Angela didn't follow the gossip. She was too busy working with Larson to implement the training program. The program focused on recognizing and addressing implicit bias, verifying information before acting, and building trust with the community. Angela led the first session herself, standing in front of a room full of officers, including some who avoided her gaze. She didn't mention the incident directly, but used it as a teaching moment, emphasizing how snap judgments could erode public trust and endanger lives. Outside the department, the community responded in different ways. Some residents rallied behind Angela, organizing a town hall to discuss policing and racial profiling. Others defended the officers, arguing they were just doing their job. The divide wasn't new, but Angela's story brought it into sharp focus. She attended the town hall, not as a captain but as a resident, listening to people's concerns and sharing her perspective. "I've been on both sides," she said. "I know what it's like to enforce the law and to be targeted by it. We need to do better." The training program began to show results. Officers reported feeling more equipped to handle ambiguous situations, and community feedback suggested a slight improvement in trust. It was a complete fix. Change never happens that fast, but it was a start. Angela continued to visit Millfield regularly, checking in on her mother and working with Larson to refine the program. Hayes and Brewer returned to duty after completing mandatory retraining, though both were noticeably humbler. Brewer even approached Angela one day at the diner, where she was having coffee with her mother. I messed up, he said, his voice low. I didn't see you for who you were. I'm sorry. Angela nodded, accepting the apology but not excusing the mistake. Learn from it, she said. That's what matters. The incident never left Angela. It was a reminder the work still needed, even for someone with her credentials. She kept pushing for reform, not just in Millfield, but in her own department in Columbus. Her story became a case study in training sessions, a cautionary tale about assumptions and their consequences. Years later, Angela was promoted to deputy chief in Columbus, a role that gave her even more influence to shape policing practices. She never forgot Millfield, though. Each time she visited, she'd stop by Miller's grocery store, not out of spite, but as a quiet act of reclaiming her space. The cashier, now a manager herself, would greet her warmly, and the new store manager made a point to apologize again for what had happened. The viral videos eventually faded from social media, but their impact lingered. They sparked conversations in Millfield and beyond, prompting other departments to reevaluate their practices. Angela didn't see herself as a hero, just a woman who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time and used it to make a difference. Her mother, Lorraine, put it best. You didn't just walk out of that store, Angela. You walked through it, and you brought change with you. For Angela, it was never about proving who she was to those officers. It was about ensuring that the next person, black, white, or otherwise, wouldn't have to face the same humiliation. She carried that mission with her, badge or no badge, knowing that real change started with moments like these, however painful they were.